Hello everyone, welcome back to AppDev channel. In the last video, we have seen how to create a database and how to fetch the users and roles for a given user ID from those database, right? We have used the JPA repository and we have created the entities and all. Now we will use that repository and we will give it to the user details service to authenticate your requests of microservices. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll in the last video we deleted the security configuration in our project. Right now I'll put it back. Okay, this one, and I also enable the security again. Now it should, yeah, all the errors are resolved now. Now instead of in-memory authentication, okay, what I'm going to do is one of the authentication technique, that is user details service. Okay, for this one we have to pass an implementation of user details service. Okay, that's all we have to do. Like this, we don't have to configure anything in the security configuration of your application, but this one user details service, right? This one we have to provide an implementation to it and we have to auto-wire it from into this configuration. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we are going to create a class, okay, that is an implementation of user details service, my app user details service. Okay, this should extend from user details service, the out of the box class extends user details service. Okay, what it is saying, it is saying it is not resolved, right? Let me import it. Okay, it is still saying some error. User details service, user details service. Why it is not accepting? Why it is accepting here? User details service is an interface, right? Yeah, it is an interface, so let us implement from that interface. Okay, now let's see what is the problem. The moment we implement it, we have to override the unimplemented methods, right? So this is an unimplemented method, load user by username, but this again we have to return the user details. Suppose we have the repository, right? What is that user repository? We can auto it into this. So user repository. So in user repository, we have created a method, right? What is that method? Find by, okay, let me open the user repository. Find by username, right? And by username, we have to pass the username what we receive from client. But problem here is find by username will gives us the user object, right? But from here we have to return the user details. So we have to convert the user object into an implementation of the user details. This is also an inbuilt class. Okay, so user service, my user details service needs an implementation of user details object, right? So we have to create another class, my app user details. Okay, and this should implement from user details interface. Again, we have to add the unimplemented methods. There will be couple of unimplemented methods like this. Okay, authority is password, username is account, non-expired, non-locked, everything. Okay, now what I'll do is I have to create the, this is exactly we are going to convert the user object into my app user details object. So we have to have all the fields that we have in the my user object. So whatever we want to return or give it to a security framework, that we have to define it here. So we have to give the username. We also want to give the password. We also want to give whether the user is active or not. Okay, we also want to give the list of roles as well. Okay, list of roles, right? So we instead of giving list of roles, we have to give the list of granted authority. Okay, granted authority. Okay, so what we will do is we will write a constructor here in the my app user details public my app user details. For this one, we are going to pass the object that we get from the database, that is the user object, right? That we are getting it from the repository. Repository is returning the user object. So we are creating a constructor here, user. Okay. Now, whatever there the username in the user object, we want to assign it to user details. Okay. Similarly, whatever their password, we want to assign it to user details password. This dot active is equal to user dot get is active. Yeah, is active. Yes. Similarly, as we cannot give the roles to the security framework, we have to give the list of granted authority to the security framework. But we are having the list of roles in the user. We have to convert those list of roles to list of granted authority in the my app user details and assign it to it. So what we have to do is we have to get the roles from it. Okay, and for each role will be having the ID and the name. That's what we have seen it in this example, right? But we have to give only the role name to the security framework. So for each role, we have to get the security role name, and we have to convert that into the granted authority object and collect all the granted authority objects into list of roles, list of granted authorities. Okay, so let's create a stream for it to get each and every object to convert each and every role to granted authority. Okay, stream dot map. So map, for this map we have to pass the each and every role. Once we get each and every role, we have to convert that into simple granted authority by passing the role name, whatever we get from the database, the role object. Okay, role dot get role name, and we can close the map from there. And for each simple granted authority, we have to collect into a list collectors dot to list. Okay, that's all. We have to give it to the this dot roles, which is the grant list of granted authorities. Okay. Now again, here the get authorities is there, right? What it is returning, it has to return the collection of granted authorities. What is that? The roles. Again, password is there. Okay. So what is that? Password we have to return. Okay, username we have to return. Okay, that's all. Here there are a couple of other methods. We don't have any fields for it to map in the database, right? That's why we are not going to do it. But yeah, is enabled, right? Is active. Not active, just active, I guess. Yeah, that's how we will see it. Okay, whether we run into any issues, then we will come to this class and we will see whether we have to modify anything else or not. Okay, so that's all. We got the my app user details constructor, and we have to use that constructor now to convert our user object into my app user details. So how we can use that constructor now? So this is actually the user repository is having the user object, right? So I want to create a new my app user details, and I'll pass that user object. That's all, and I'll return it. So whatever the object that is returned from the constructor by populating the database data, that object will be given to this service, and that service we are using it in the configuration, authentication configuration. Okay, that's all. We are done with this example. Now let me restart the application, then we will see whether we run into any issues or not. See, there is a problem. Let's see what is the problem. Relying upon circular references is discouraged and they are prohibited by default. Update your application to remove the circular dependency. Okay, what is the circular dependency between app security configuration and in-memory user details manager? Okay, where is my app security configuration? Yep. Here in my app security configuration, what I'm doing, user details service I'm relying on. Okay, and user details service, there is no problem. I auto-wired it also. Similarly, I have to annotate my user details service as at service. Where is my user details service? Yes, that's all. Let's run it now. Yep, application is started successfully. Now what we will be doing, we will be trying to access our microservice from the browser with these users, user 1 and admin 1. Okay, we have to see whether the authentication works fine or not now. Okay, so http colon double slash localhost colon 8080 slash employee slash fetch all. Yeah, it is redirecting. At least the security is getting triggered. Now what I'll do is fetch all, right? So admin one password. What is the error? We'll see whether we get any error. See, this user account is locked. So there is no problem, but there is no problem with our most of the configuration, but there is a slightly a problem. It is still saying user account is locked even though account is active. Okay, in my app user details class, here there is a field here, is account non-locked. So if it is set to false by default, right? So all this object is being given to user details service, right? That's why it is throwing account is locked. So we have to enable it. If we have the fields in the database, we can map those fields here, but as we don't have, we can, for testing purpose, we can enable them. Okay, is account non-expired? True. Is credentials non-expired? True. Otherwise we will get the errors for all of them. Okay, that's all. Okay, now let's run it. So my app user details is playing a crucial role to find the roles and to find the user. whether he is actually having permission to access that particular microservice or not. Now let me hit again the employee slash fetch all. It is redirected to login. I am trying to log in with admin1 password. Bad credentials it is saying. Because why it is showing bad credentials? Encoded password does not look like BCrypt. In our configuration class, we have asked to use BCrypt password encoder, but in database we have added only the plain passwords, right? That's why it is complaining your password is not BCrypt password. So for now, let's use no password encoder so that it will always check for the plain password only. Okay, I'm restarting my application. It's restarted. Now let me hit the fetch all again. Admin1 password. See, admin1 fetch all, right? Fetch all is actually should be allowed to admin user based on this configuration, but it is still not being allowed because the moment you mention has role, you don't have to mention the role underscore prefix here, but in the input, whatever the data you are giving in, right, there it should be having role underscore. That's why it is not giving the proper credential, proper access. So we have to go to the database and give the prefix as role underscore user. Similarly, role underscore admin. Okay. Otherwise, it is not identifying your roles if it is just having prefix, if it is just having username, right? So the input data should always be having the role underscore, but here we don't have to prefix it with anything. While we are using has authority, then you have to prefix here with role underscore. That's what we have seen in our previous example, right? The difference between has role and has authority, granted authority on the role. So based on that example, for input, we have to give the role underscore in the database, but not here while we are using has role. Okay, now let's run it. Okay, it all fine. Yeah, container started up. Now let me hit this service again. It is taking me to the sign in page. Now let me check whether, yeah, see this, the fetch all service is working fine for the admin user. Whether I'm able to access the fetch by ID service as admin user, yes, I'm able to access. Uh, Let me log out and see with the user service, user employee slash fetch all. I'm going to log in as admin user one and password. See, fetch all is not given access to user one, right? So our this authorization rule is also working fine. Okay, user one should be able to access only the fetch ID, but not the fetch all. Now let me check the fetch by ID. See, user one is not able to access the fetch ID because here we mentioned as employee role, but in the database we are getting it as user role underscore user, right? So we have to modify this to user. We have to modify slightly because in the earlier example we configured employee and admin roles, right? But in today's example in MySQL database we configured user and admin roles. Now let's see whether the user able to access the user one or not, the fetch by ID service or not. User one password, user is able to access the fetch by ID. Fetch all will not be there. Okay, What is the other service which should be accessible for any user? Employee slash wish, right? That is also accessible. So that's all. Okay, this is how we can write our MySQL or the JPA based authentication with our custom tables and custom roles, everything. Whatever role you can give, okay, instead of admin or user, you can give one and two as well, but that should be prefixed with role underscore string in your database, but not required here. Okay, so whatever roles that are given in the database and the authorization that is given, exact authorization given in your configuration, it works based on the configuration only. You don't have to give user admin employee only. For your organization specific, for your application specific roles also, you can mention in the authorization and also in the database table. It will work fine with all your customized tables and the customized data, customized users, customized roles, everything. Okay. So that's all. We are done with the JPA MySQL authentication as well. That way, we don't even have to store the list of users in our Java class, right? We can have any number of hundreds of users in the database and we can authenticate them directly. If at all we are going with in-memory authentication, if at all we have to modify or add the couple of users after the application is deployed, we have to modify this class. But if at all 100 users or 200 users are coming up in future, if you are using your user details service as an authentication technique for securing your microservices, you don't have to modify your application. You can directly go and update those users in the database and you just have to restart the application. That's it. The application will start picking up the new users for authenticating your microservices as well. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We will meet up in the next video with a new topic. Thank you for watching. Please give it a like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.